Dear Federica, esteemed High Representative and Vice President of the European Commission, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, before allowing myself to give some views about the topic and the discussions, please allow me to also warmly welcome being with us Madame Federica Mogherini, the High Representative for Foreign and Security Policy of the European Union and Vice President of the European Commission. I also would like to express my sincere thanks to Aspen, to Mircea and his team for organizing such a high-level and important event. And I'm all the more grateful to the organizers for this excellent opportunity to allow me to address a number of key subjects related to the European Union, the current state of play, and Romania's approach concerning the future of the European Union. Distinguished audience, over the last couple of years, the EU has been confronted with multiple crises and very difficult tests. And I'm absolutely sure that some of them would be dealt with during our debate by the High Representative. The accumulated impact brought under scrutiny the EU's capacity of efficiently and coherently responding to major simultaneous challenges. That is why, in the current context, marked by the Brexit debate, we need to promote a more offensive European agenda. It is our priority and our common responsibility to work together for a better union. For those and many other profound reasons, the debate about Brexit and the discussion about the future of Europe are inseparable. Times of crisis can be overcome if there is a common will. Now more than ever, the EU 27 member states should remain united. The Bratislava Declaration of September 16 gave the right signal reconfirming that the EU remains an indispensable project for all of us. Indeed, for the Europeans to continue to enjoy a prosperous and value-based society, and for them to count globally, there is no alternative to a stronger union. We need to remain committed to work for a better and more cohesive union, closer to its citizens, and to turn current challenges into an opportunity to relaunch the European Union. The upgraded EU should be result-oriented, more flexible in its procedures, and, as I already said, based on its fundamental values and principles. Solidarity is among those principles. While having specific national or regional interests, our major priorities in Europe should remain common for all of us because they require nothing less but common solutions. Priority areas where immediate action should be taken include strong EU policies with added value for our citizens, as well as clear results before setting new objectives. In this respect, the most urgent actions are related to the internal and external security nexus, including the Union's action in our neighborhood or the enlargement, ensuring thus economic growth, creating more jobs, communicating better about what we do. This approach has to prevail also in the dealing with the Brexit. We have to respond to the consequences of the UK vote by strengthening the European commitment and by reassuring our commonalities, our European identity. But to be sure, we will adopt the most appropriate approach and thus secure our success. We need to have a clear picture and understanding of why Brexit took place. That brings me to speak about the need of vision, the topic of this panel, of a strategic vision on the future of the European Union, be it with regards to the developments inside the European Union or with regards to the EU's role in the world. When discussing the future of the European Union, there are already reasons to be positive. One of that is the European Union Global Strategy for Foreign and Security Policy. Mrs. Mogherini, let me give you my heartfelt congratulations and to applaud your commitment and leadership together with the considerable work and efforts you've done. I think that Federica Mogherini deserves our applause. Thanks to a great extent to you, in terms of foreign and security policy, we have the necessary vision and a clear idea about what we should stand for internationally, who our partners are, nations, organizations, what we expect from them, and what we can offer them, based on our security-related priorities. That being said, I hope you wouldn't mind if I mentioned that Romania as well may have brought some contribution to this strategy. And I include also here, although I didn't ask Mr. Joanna, but I also include the significant contribution the Aspen Institute in Romania has brought. Now the word of the day is implementation. And I very much welcome the roadmap that you have recently presented, High Representative, in this respect, and which suggests avenues for turning our shared views into common policies, both in Europe and beyond. Let me reaffirm that today that Romania will provide the necessary support to the implementation process, as member states' ownership is crucial for the success. To bear fruits, it is of utmost importance that the strategy be internalized into the national policies of our countries. We advocate for strong engagement as well as for flexibility and pragmatism, with a key focus on having everyone on board. This list of areas for implementation is a precious guideline, while the time framework should be interconnected with the need for engagement for achieving substantial results. The strategy maintains its perfect relevance even if the Brexit happened meanwhile. But further mapping of the consequences of the Brexit to EU's global positioning needs to be done in order to ensure a solid, systematic implementation of the strategy. Romania has started its own internal assessment on all areas of implementation, particularly the integrated approach to crisis, increased resilience, the civil and military dimensions of security and defense. We will pay a lot of attention to strengthening the resilience of the European Union's neighbors, and we are interested in an advanced thinking on how to reach out to the neighbors' neighbors. For us, one thing is clear. If the EU is to be a successful actor, it has to make a difference in its neighborhood on both dimensions, East and South. In the same spirit, the Eastern Partnership should be strengthened as an instrument that proves the commitment of the European Union and the Member States towards our Eastern partners. There is a complex array of classic-type tensions and new threats to our region, adding to the unsolved frozen conflicts. Under such circumstances, and bearing in mind the need for tangible deliverables by the next EAP summit, we should advance on those channels already opened: association, trade agreements, traveling regime, and on the multilateral platforms. We also need to be more creative. Further reflection and action regarding how to build resilience and improve Eastern partners' security is welcomed. Romania will contribute to that with its own efforts. Another important point which has to do with vision is to secure close complementarity between the Defense and Security Implementation Plan and NATO's mission and functioning. In this respect, the EU-NATO Joint Declaration from Warsaw is a milestone, creating the means to take our partnership further. The idea of a Schengen of defense, if I may say so, may raise some eyebrows in Bucharest. I take the opportunity to emphasize Romania's contribution to enhancing security at EU's external borders and our readiness to work together with all member states to make Schengen more functional again from within this format. One final point. Using all the instruments we have in a coherent and synchronized way is vital. Public diplomacy, meaning better communicating by the European Union about the EU, is also crucial. Among the available instruments for that, national diplomacies can play a very important role. Romania intends to put its quite extensive diplomatic network to the service of the implementation of the strategy's objectives in key partner countries. Madam Mogherini, distinguished audience, as I already said, there is no alternative to the EU. The European integration project remains the cornerstone of our foreign policy, deeply intertwined to Romania's national identity and long-term perspective. I am proud to say that we remain one of the most pro-European societies within the European Union. To our national strategic choices, we add the transatlantic relationship and relations. They are as fundamental for the future of the European Union as they are for us. Today, there is no single country or actor that can deal by itself with our common challenges, as you, Madam Mogherini, were rightly pointing out in Washington not so long ago. Zooming closer to our borders, our regional security environment is still seriously affected by the consequences of the events in the past 2 years in the EU's vicinity. In the East, we are confronted with breaches of international law, deeply affecting the stability of the Black Sea region. In the southern neighborhood of both NATO and the European Union, we are witnessing the emergence of major challenges: terrorism, the worsening of the Syrian conflict, growing ethnic, religious, and political tensions, poverty and despair generating uncontrolled migration flows. To all these challenges, we have to respond in a coherent manner. The implementation of the EU global strategy is the answer. Thank you very much.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you very much, Mircea, Lazăr, friends. I am really honored, and it's really a great pleasure for me, first of all, to take part once again in an event hosted by the Aspen Institute, because each of our meetings, each of your initiatives provides us with so much food for thought, and I'm sure this is also the case in this couple of days here. It is also always a great pleasure to join my friends from the German Marshall Fund. It's almost a decade since I became a fellow of the fund, and the people I met back then are still playing a very important part of the relations I've developed in these years, including in my current job. So thank you for providing me a good and solid basis for these challenging times and tasks. So let me begin by quoting an op-ed that you wrote together with Marta over the summer. You talked about the global strategy, and you said it must be, I quote, the springboard for an exercise in political innovation. I really like this definition. I really think that this is exactly what we have to do. This is exactly the meaning of the global strategy, the reason why we have developed it and presented it. This strategy cannot stay on paper. It's not a document. And in fact, our exercise in political innovation, as you put it, has already started in these weeks. Often we complain that European Union is low. Well, we might be in a position that member states complain we're running too fast. But that's good. I think that's good. If you think about it, you look back, the Lisbon Treaty. It has entered into force at the end of 2009. And that was in the middle of the financial crisis. It was difficult times for Europe and for our citizens. And everyone was so busy with addressing that emergency, and it feels like we forgot to explore the full potential of the treaty and of an enlarged European Union. Since then, Europe has often given the impression of jumping from one emergency, from one crisis to the other. I believe that we have now realized that crisis management is not enough. We have faced the financial crisis, the debt crisis, the refugee flows, security threats, but it's not only that we have to look at. We need to explore all our instruments that are already there. We need to make full use of them to realize how powerful our union is. I often say, you can be the strongest actor in the world, but if you don't realize your strength, if you're not aware of your power, you don't use it. It's useless. So we need to understand what works in the European Union, what doesn't work, what can work better, and change where we need to change, and use what we have at full. That's where we need an exercise in political innovation, and this is what leads me here today. When we started working on the global strategy, we knew very well that it couldn't be simply made in Brussels. This is a strategy for the whole Union, for each of our citizens. Actually, this brings us to a reflection of what it is, the European Union. I often say, the only ones that cannot afford the luxury of antagonizing their capital city and the European Union, it's Belgium. But apart from that, we all have to realize that the European Union is each and every of us, and we have a common shared responsibility to make it work. There is no European Union without the Europeans. There is no European Union without each and every of the capital cities of our member states. There is no European Union, finally, without each and every citizen of the Union. So this strategy was born to make the common ground, the common interest of European citizens emerge in the field of foreign and security policy. So, not something produced in closed rooms, in buildings far away from our lives. It had to reflect all our different traditions, geographies, histories, priorities. And I must thank Lazăr for the Romanian contribution to the drafting of the text. That was very much appreciated, as it was the contribution that Aspen provided to us. And I'm not saying this just to be nice to my host. People know that I can be very blunt and direct. I'm not very diplomatic. It was really appreciated. It was really bringing a special contribution to our exercise. And it has to continue. Because the strength of our union is our diversity, the richness of our national diplomacies, the plurality of our points of view. Often I'm asked to guarantee that the European Union speaks with one voice, and I always say our strength is not one voice. Our strength is the plurality of our voices. The important thing is that we pass the same message, we work in the same direction, we sing the same song, but with different voices. Our strength is that we are a choir rather than a single singer. For instance, from this side of Europe, from this side of the Union, it is much more evident that we cannot split our foreign policy in two. Those that are looking to the east and those that are looking to the south. You look at the Black Sea region and it couldn't be more evident than that you have to look south and east at the same time. Europe can be a global power and a strong security provider only if it manages to do the two things at the same time, east and south. I was sharing with Mircea and other friends just a few minutes ago. I spent almost 1 year in 2014 as an Italian minister, saying that the European Union could have not afforded focusing only on the Eastern crisis, and that we should have kept the developments on the South on the agenda. Now I spend my time saying the rest of the story, that we should not forget the East because of the worsening of the situation in the South or in the Middle East. There's no contradiction in that. We have the strength, we have the responsibility, we have the duty, we have the interest in doing the two things at the same time. And this would give us the credibility and the strength also to be a strong global player. And we have the potential to do so. And first of all, we cannot afford shying away from using such potential. But this isn't simply about geography. Look at any country in our Eastern Partnership, and you will see that our relations are incredibly complex and rich. Our cooperation spans from energy to human rights, from migration to connectivity, and each of our member states has its own network, its historic and geographic ties. At the same time, we can be so much stronger as a union of 500 million people, as the greatest economy in the world, and the greatest market in the world, and the biggest humanitarian donor, and the biggest development actor, and a strong and responsible security provider, always working for peace. So, Lazar, you were asking for a little bit, and you also, a little bit of positive injections. I take it as my personal job description, because I see how our partners see us from outside. I think I have a responsibility to bring a little bit of this importance that all our partners around the world attach to the European Union, and bring it back to our citizens and to our decision makers inside the Union. This is why we need a global strategy. And now we have it. We must make sure that it leads to concrete changes in the way we do our foreign policy. Our work on implementation has already started, as I said, over the summer. So let me briefly focus on some of the main strands we're focusing on currently, together with the foreign ministers, the defense ministers, the heads of state and government, the development cooperation ministers, and with all my colleagues and friends in the European Commission. But most of all, let me say, hopefully, also with all of you, because we have produced the strategy together with an open process, together with civil society, think tanks, academia, the foreign and security policy community in Europe and beyond, because we received a lot of contributions from very far away, from Brazil to Japan. And we will need to keep that open space also for our implementation work. So the first area of our work on implementation concerns resilience and an integrated approach to conflicts and crises. We understand this better than anyone else here in Europe. Just think of the European history, or just think of Ukraine. Of course, the conflict in the east of the country has to be addressed from a security point of view and through diplomacy, working for the implementation of the Minsk agreements, as we are doing every single day. But the stabilization of Ukraine requires much more than that. It requires also greater resilience for the country's institutions. It requires good reforms to help the Ukrainian economy thrive. And the same goes for the protracted conflicts in the wider Black Sea region. The media keep forgetting about them now until the next escalation, which means hopefully never, but the point is that our foreign policy needs to keep a constant focus on addressing the causes of the conflicts with all tools at our disposals, without following necessarily the headlines in the news, but keeping the focus from an early stage to after the acute moments of crisis are gone. The second area of implementation of the strategy concerns the link between internal and external policies, starting with two priorities that every European citizen feels: security and human mobility, counterterrorism and migration. These are two fields where it's self-evident to everybody in Europe that our internal policies are credible and strong only if rooted with coherent and effective external policies, and vice versa. Our external policies have a sound basis only if our internal policies are credible, sustainable, and coherent with our values. So the third, last element of implementation for our strategy for the moment, last but definitely not least of it, is security and defense. The security of our citizens has never been so closely connected to our foreign policy. Everybody perceives that. Instability outside our borders is impacting our citizens' daily lives. At the same time, our partners are asking for a stronger Europe of defense. Just 2 weeks after I presented the global strategy at the end of June, John Kerry joined a meeting of our European Foreign Affairs Council. Lazar will remember that. And I was surprised to find out that it was the first time ever for a US Secretary of State to join our European Union Foreign Affairs Council. Isn't that incredible? Still, we did it. And we did it a few weeks after the referendum in the UK. I think it's not by chance. And he fully supported our decision to strengthen our union, including in the field of defense. And I think John visited Brussels 4 or 5 times in the last couple of months. A strong sign of friendship and partnership. I'll come back to that at the end. But the very same day I presented the global strategy to the European Council at the end of June, the first person I handed to the copy of the strategy personally was my friend Jens Stoltenberg, 10 minutes after presenting the strategy to the Council. The Secretary General of NATO, for those of you that might not know it. I don't think there are many in the room. So that was clearly a symbolic decision, but also a very concrete commitment to our cooperation. In fact, Jens joined our informal meeting of defense ministers just 1 week ago, 10 days ago in Bratislava, as he always does. He always comes to our defense ministerial meetings, as I always go to the NATO defense ministerial meetings. And his message there 10 days ago was crystal clear, in public and in the meeting. A strong European defense cooperation can only reinforce NATO. There is no contradiction. On the contrary, there is only space for complementarity. And it is not by chance if the implementation of the EU global strategy is moving forward in parallel, at the same time, hand in hand, to the implementation of the EU-NATO Warsaw Joint Declaration. We can strengthen each other because NATO needs a strong Europe of defense. We are now discussing concrete proposals to bring the Europe of defense to the next level, and we have committed to a very tight timetable. Next month, I will present ministers with a full implementation plan on defense and security, to which all member states are currently, in these days, contributing. And the idea is to bring it to the European Council in December. We can work on a common level of ambition, on more effective cooperation on capabilities, and on the full use of the potential the treaties give us in the field of security and defense. As I said, the Lisbon Treaty contains a number of provisions that have never been really used or explored, and maybe it's time we start using the tools we have. So I see a strong political will to move forward in this field. It's what our citizens expect. It's what I expect our national leaders will be ready to do. And I believe this is a truly historic opportunity. We can fulfill the process that started in Lisbon, which has been delayed for too long. We can realize the dream of Europe's founding fathers and mothers, a few of them, but still some, who always imagined that a defense community would have gone hand in hand with the economic community, back in the 50s. The world has changed, Europe has changed, but the potential for that is still there. And maybe the time is right to go for that. But most of all, we can truly address our citizens' needs and our partners' aspirations and expectations. Because our partners around the world have very clear ideas on us, on the EU and on the strength of the EU. So let me conclude by quoting John Kerry that just 3 days ago, in Brussels at a GMF event, delivered a very powerful speech on transatlantic relations, and he said, I quote, "I encourage you all," and the you is us Europeans, "I encourage you all to believe in yourselves as much as we believe in you." I believe we have a common responsibility to listen to him. Thank you very much.